Good evening. In the evening overview of the events of the day from the television company Ostankiно. The second day of the first official visit of the President of the United States, Bill Clinton, to Russia was significant in Russian-American relations, if you judge by the number of important agreements signed. Apart from the official meetings, it was full of informal meetings as well, and one of them was held here in Ostankiно. Here, Bill Clinton addressed the Russian people. This address could be seen by millions of Russians, as well as citizens of the CIS and television viewers of 30 countries of the world, because parallel from the television company Ostankiно, CNN was here. Of course, the visit of the President to the USA and today's address to Russians from Ostankiно proves that in big politics, there can also be a human face. I think they were convinced, not only those in the auditorium today, together with the President, but those Russians who, using the satellite communications, made contact with him from their cities. Addressing Russians, Bill Clinton expressed the admiration to accomplishments of literature, art, and on the battlefield in space of Russians. Regarding Russia and the United States, they must make their contribution to strengthen the spirit of cooperation and partnership in the entire world, inspiring the daily life of each person, including the Russian citizens. Bill Clinton emphasized that Russians themselves must decide the questions of establishing their future. And the people of the USA and its president wish very much to be partners and sincere friends of Russia, stated Bill Clinton. During a meeting which, despite the high-level protocol, was extended for 18 minutes. And now about that which comprised the second part of the official day of the visit of the President to Moscow in a chronological order. The second day of his visit to Moscow, the President of the USA, Bill Clinton, began with the laying of a wreath to the monument of the unknown soldier who fell in wars which our countries were involved. Today's final round of high-level Russian-American talks confirmed that in the relations between Russia and the United States, a definite, strong course for partnership has been established. Proof of this is today's signed two-sided documents, and in particular the Moscow Declaration, the joint statement on human rights and on the Middle East, and also the announcements of the presidents of Russia and the United States on the non-proliferation of armaments of mass destruction and means of supplying them. The problems of nuclear disarmament were the center of attention at the three-sided meeting of the delegations of Russia, the United States, and Ukraine. The results, as assessed by Boris Yeltsin as a common great victory, was the signing of a document which affirms the non-nuclear status of Ukraine and defining the mechanism to remove from the territory to Russia nuclear arsenal, and also the methods of compensation to Ukraine for warheads delivered to Russia, and also Russian-American guarantees to Ukraine as to a non-nuclear nation. We, of course, did not feel, and never did feel or consider that there was any threat from Ukraine could exist at any time. But nonetheless, for the world community, this is a historical day today, the signing of an agreement by three presidents on the liquidation of nuclear armaments in Ukraine, and Ukraine's joining to the agreement on the non-proliferation of nuclear weapons as a whole. This is one more step of world disarmament of nuclear arsenals. According to the opinion of President Clinton, having signed the joint agreement, Ukraine has increased its weight in the world and strengthened the security of the United States by removing from its territory warheads aimed at America. And according to the statement, security of Russia is being strengthened, and there is a decrease in the possibility of nuclear catastrophe, nuclear espionage, and terrorism in the world, added the President of the United States. In the end, Ukraine will receive more security because, having signed this document together with the presidents of Russia and the United States of America, we, at the same time, the presidents, have confirmed they have confirmed the guarantee of security to Ukraine. At today's press conference, Boris Yeltsin stated that the exceptionally productive visit of the President of the United States to Moscow justified the high expectations of the people of our country, who, in the words of the Russian president, are in the thick of a Russian-American revolution of renovation. And during this decisive moment, he noted Russian reformationists could count on the support of the United States. Boris Yeltsin at the same time noted that today this aspect of the two-sided relations needs correction. We currently need not humanitarian aid, but full-fledged cooperation, considering the transitional character of a young market economy of Russia. And concretely, together with the Tokyo package and the Clinton package from Vancouver, for Russia, the most significant aid would be the opening of the American market for our exports, either it be raw materials or automobiles. I'm extremely satisfied that today, finally, after 2 years of talks, the agreement was signed on uranium. We must finally liquidate the restrictions of the Cold War as an amendment to those years and remove the artificial barriers created under the guise of Russian dampening. And let's say, for example, with our uranium, that is probably more the fear of competition of a more advanced technology and cheaper material. Since the days of Vancouver, Bill Clinton did much. He kept his word in that which regards the rectifying of economic deterioration of the Cold War. Restrictions were removed from the American inner legislation in an overwhelming majority. Freed from raised tariffs are almost 5,000 classes of Russian goods. The President of the United States has conducted a great task on Russia's acceptance into international financial and economic organizations. And I feel that the time is not far when the Big Seven will become an 8. Speaking of the Russian-American cooperation in creating a firm system of European international security, Boris Yeltsin refuted the accusations of Russia's neo-empirical aspirations, expressing regret regarding the restrained reaction of the world community on the Russian initiatives to regulate the conflicts in Abkhazia and Tajikistan in particular. He called biting today's signed joint declaration on human rights. Boris Yeltsin warned against double standards in the approach to the Russian-speaking people in the Baltic countries. And also, according to the President, Russia and the United States in this have no dispute. I don't want that everything should sound too positive. This doesn't reflect the nature of our candid business talks. There were and there will be disagreements. But the main thing is the dedication to the search of understanding, and which will be embodied later in concrete policy. This is our flight mission for American and Russian partnership. And it will well replace the mission for strategic missiles, which will now not be aimed at each other. In his statement for the press, the President Bill Clinton, thanking Boris Yeltsin and his team for the productive work, affirmed the readiness of the United States to work on joint projects on expediting market reforms in Russia. And at the same time, he emphasized that 70% of the financial means agreed upon in Vancouver for these aims, the United States has already allotted. In the future, America wishes to help Russia to alleviate social difficulties in our country, realizing the program of professional reorientation and creating in our country funds to support small and large enterprises. The President Bill Clinton highly assessed today's documents which were signed, and especially the $12 billion contract for the purchase of highly rich uranium, and also the perspective of foreign investment in Russian reforms. As the American President stated, the next meeting with Boris Yeltsin will be in July in Naples during the meeting of the Group of Seven, and in the autumn, the President of Russia will visit the United States. Answering questions of the press, Boris Yeltsin affirmed the adherence of Russia to the course of decisive reforms, stating that he also counts on the high level of responsibility and political culture of the new parliament. Bill Clinton also called not to dramatize the redistribution of political powers in Russia after the recent elections. The American president noted that the United States sees Russia as a great country whose people must define their own future themselves. In the opinion of the American president, reforms in Russia are progressing quite well, and soon Russians will feel their real benefits. Today's day of the visit ended with a triumphant luncheon in honor of the President of the United States of America and his wife. It was held in the Granite Palace of the Moscow Kremlin, where for many centuries great princes and tsars hosted foreign guests. Speaking before the audience, Boris Nikolaevich Yeltsin again emphasized that history provided our two countries a unique chance to realize the potential for partnership and friendship. Both presidents proclaimed toasts for the flourishing and prosperity of our nations. As of today, together with other countries following the path of nuclear disarmament, is also Ukraine. This was an assessment of the three-sided agreements signed in Moscow, given by President Leonid Kravchuk at a press conference in the Embassy of Ukraine. I express satisfaction with the meetings which were held today with the President of Russia, Boris Yeltsin, and the President of the United States of America, Bill Clinton. Having signed these three-sided documents, Ukraine, together with other countries, in the interests of the Ukrainian people and Russian people and all humanity, is following the path of nuclear disarmament. And I would say that this is one of the first making this historical step. With such words, the meeting with the press, the President of Ukraine began signing the joint Russian-American-Ukrainian agreement on the removal from the territory of Ukraine of nuclear weapons, provides it guarantees of security, noted Leonid Kravchuk. It also permits the receipt of compensation for nuclear fuel and also will contribute to activate economic ties with other countries. The removal of strategic nuclear weapons from Ukrainian territory will be accomplished on the basis of the Russian-Ukrainian Accord regarding tactical nuclear armaments, which are being removed from the Republic. The President of Ukraine emphasized the cost will be assessed by experts, after which Ukraine will receive compensation to balance out debts of Ukraine to Russia for energy. Leonid Kravchuk expressed confidence that in the current year, the problem of the Black Sea Fleet will finally be resolved, and Russian-Ukrainian cooperation will gain new perspectives. The deputies of the higher chamber of the Federal Assembly worked harmoniously and calmly today, and which could be possibly very important, they began to quickly find mutual understanding. The nominating and voting took place for candidates to the post of the deputy chairman of the House. One of them was the famous politician Ramazan Abdullatipov. And the chairman of the Soviet of Ministers of the Chulash Republic, Valerian Viktorov, is only just emerging on the Russian political horizon. He is also an elected deputy of the chairman of the Federative Council. The third deputy was not elected today. The deputies, Peter Romanov and Alexander Kovalyov, did not gain the necessary majority of votes. And now, already in the press, there are opinions surfacing that this chamber could become, as some people say, the pocket chamber under the president. Do you have such a fear? No, I have no such fear. If you noticed in the auditorium, there are very independent people present who it will probably be difficult to put simply in the pocket. And leading our chamber is Vladimir Filipovich Shemeka, who is a person of extreme independence, who will not blindly follow, let's say, directions which could possibly come from the side of the president or the head of the government. But on the other hand, I'm absolutely convinced that he will not enter into an unnecessary confrontation between the president and the government. With the deputies of the Federative Council and leaders of the organs of executive power, today Viktor Chernomyrdin held a meeting on the proposal that the Premier Commission was created to develop new principles of social and economic policies. The proposals of the Commission will be examined by the government and later reported to the President. The meeting showed that the deputies of the Federative Council are prepared to actively cooperate with the government. And the deputies of the State Duma of Russia voted today by secret ballot for the Speaker of the lower chamber of the Federal Assembly. The chairman of the State Duma today, the 47-year-old Ivan Rybkin, was elected from the Agrarian Party of Russia. He gained the minimum number of votes, that is 223, exceeding the other candidate, the writer Yuri Vlasov. It is noteworthy that the parliament, by special resolution, had to admit one deciding but contentious ballot for the Rybkin candidacy. 8 members of the Accounting Commission expressed a special opinion, stating that the decisive ballot was not filled in clearly and could not be considered. In the work of the State Duma, a recess was announced until Monday. And until that time, the leaders of the factions must coordinate their approaches on forming committees and commissions for the lower chamber of parliament. The new chairman of the State Duma, in the former Supreme Soviet, headed the faction of the Communists of Russia, held a press conference for journalists. Ivan Rybkin emphasized that he is for the cooperation with the president and government and expressed hope that the current State Duma will work its full term. The contours of constructive work will be drawn by the center, which in the opinion of Rybkin are represented by the Agrarian Party in cooperation with industrialists. Answering the question on the program News, the chairman of the Duma considered his powers to be sufficient to reorganize legislative work. The chairman of the State Duma must organize the legislative process in such a way so that, first of all, the economic block of problems, that is, the problems of our life and vital problems, would receive the necessary reinforcement and support. No matter what we may say, we're having a difficult time keeping up with life. In the State Duma, the first fight occurred today. The conflict was between the leader of the Liberal Democratic Party and a deputy, Mark Garyachev, an entrepreneur from St. Petersburg. According to witnesses, Mark Garyachev punched Vladimir Zhirinovsky in the face. In order to quell the conflict, militia was called. According to witnesses, the conflict occurred because one of those sides wanted to get ahead in the line in the cafeteria. We continue our broadcast. Today, the cosmonauts Vasily Tsiblev and Alexander Serebrov, who worked in orbit for 197 days, returned to Earth. The spaceship Soyuz TM-17 successfully landed 215 kilometers west of the city Karaganda. During the flight, the members of the 14th Basic Expedition held 5 walks into open space of an average length of 14 hours each. The last 3 days, Vasily Tsiblev and Alexander Serebrov worked in the space station Mir together with Viktor Afanasyev, Yuri Musachov, and Valery Polyakov, who will continue the flight. The Parliament of Kyrgyzstan adopted its military concept. It has a clearly defined defense character. A special point of the concept, and military people feel this is extremely important, says that the use of armed forces to resolve internal or political questions in the Kyrgyz Republic is prohibited. The major arsenal was found by Russian border troops in one of the sites in the zone of responsibility of the Moscow Border Regiment. Itatas reports that probably the secret arsenal belongs to the Tajik opposition, the group which is in hiding continuously in the Shurabat Mountains. With a work visit to the capital of southern Ossetia, Shimvali, the Deputy Minister of Defense, Sergeant General George Kindratev, arrived. The aim is to study the situation in the conflict zone and the state of affairs of the peacekeeping battalion located in the Shimval region. I, as one of the deputies who answers for the peacekeeping forces, naturally came to location, to see for myself, not from the office in Moscow, and become convinced. You see, we were in the village, and I became convinced that people live very poorly, and one must immediately take measures. Poorly, that is under an understatement. Our forces, together with the Ossetina special units and the Georgian units, are living in a pitiful condition. The lunches are served under the open sky, the barracks in full absence of all elementary amenities, and are heated in violation to all fire standards. The situation in Shimvali itself is complex. Although military activity has ceased, residents state unanimously that if the peacekeeping forces leave, blood will flow here. For example, in the Tsiroks flock, one must cross it with armored vehicles. The main thing here is that we must reestablish work with the local Mixed Control Commission, which will work not in Moscow, but here on location. It seems the war has ended. Here we're standing here. There's no shooting, no blood is being spilled, but the reasons have not been liquidated even until this day. That is, troops were brought in and they were appeased. Much here is not completed in the plan, and I feel that there is no real desire to do it. The UN still does not want our troops to have peacekeeper status, 16,000 of whom are in conflict zones of the former USSR, restraining warring sides. But perhaps one should not blame the UN and solve our own problems. We were able to equip 1,500 peacekeeping troops to go to Yugoslavia. Edward Zakharov, a special reporter from Southern Ossetia. The command of the Northwest Group of Russian forces gave an order to curb unlawful actions against military servicemen and objects of the Russian army with all means, even to the implementation of arms, in the attempts to seize objects to respond with fire. This order was announced today in the press center of the Northwest Group of Armed Forces. This order was issued because of an incident in Latvia Monday when 4 armed objects were blockaded. During the last few days, local and short strikes have been erupting at coal mines in Vorkuta. The reason is previous delays in salary and non-compliance with government decisions on this issue. Still, great outstanding debts exist for coal, which has already been delivered to consumers. The flight of Kazakhstan airliners to Moscow and the near foreign countries have stopped for half a month. This is according to the announcement in the city airport. In the airport, information seems to be top secret. Flights traditionally are postponed by 1 hour one day. It is known that the Tyumen oil refineries don't produce aviation kerosene. There is no raw materials, and the problem is former. The problem of non-payment to Tyumen for oil. And all of this is a result of the uncoordinated financial systems of the two countries. Aviation workers asking the government to defreeze part of the fuel in the government reserves. The private Turkmenian firm is prepared to sell heat in exchange for might, but the pilots of Almaty have neither money on their accounts nor economic freedom. The aviation company owes the subordinates millions of tinges. When it returns them, it is not known. The flights provide direct losses for great sums, and later they will be written off, and in order to cover them, they will again raise the cost of tickets. And as usual, the burden will fall on the passengers. And what is happening with the Moscow flights? Wait. And how long should we wait, young lady? In Tajikistan, the gradual entry into the ruble zone continues. As if in a shock condition, the last few months in Tajikistan was because of the indefinite situation with the currency. The republic was the only country on the entire territory of the former USSR where in circulation were the old Soviet rubles. They lost value in Russia, but in Tajikistan they were not popular, which led to the disappearance from the shelves of stores and markets, foods and industrial goods. As of the 8th of January, by the special decree of the Supreme Soviet, the old currency as the legal tender in Tajikistan were also banned. The first pensions and subsidies and salaries were given out through currency of the 93 issue. Almost normalized was the bread trade. The entry into the ruble zone continues. There must still be a coordination of the bank systems of Russia and Tajikistan and the final agreement on the conditions of payments and transactions, without which the full rejuvenation of the economy is hopeless. Today, there's also confidence that the republic, which experienced the destructive civil war, will recover from its most severe economic crisis. Today, in trading at the Moscow interbank currency exchange, the rate of the dollar was 1,356 rubles. That is, it was at yesterday's level. The rate of the German mark was decreased by 2 points. In the opinion of experts, the high demand for the currency makes the currency market unstable. The International Currency Foundation and Russia will their relations be reflected upon by the elections? How will they reflect on the policy of the fund? And to clarify this question, this was the object at the press conference in Paris by its director and executor, Michel Comdessieu, who stated directly about the unwavering policy of the fund toward Russia. A priority for it remains to be still to bridle inflation, financial stability, which will help to receive the means for the immediate resolution of social problems. I feel, he said, that in this are the intentions of your government, and we are prepared to aid it to the maximum. A large group of specialists of the fund is working currently in Moscow to create, jointly with the Russian government, an effective mechanism of social security for the population during the transitional market period. The director of the International Currency Fund feels that Russia, with the help of the international community, can overcome the unemployment growth and other social problems under the condition that it avoids mistakes of the past, that is, crediting of the economy. And in other words, to overcome inflationary processes, the Russian economy must recover from the decline and help her to solve current social problems. The 30-year history of the relationship between the South African conglomerate De Beers and Russia, one can not call a love story. The sore callus of Russia after the collapse of the USSR is still the agreement, according to which we have the right to trade on the world market with only 5% of our unrefined diamonds, and all the rest must go only through De Beers. And this is the story of the world of diamond market trade. And naturally, in Rome, one must do as the Romans do. However, feelings of injustice continue to hurt, and lately they again emerged. The central organization of De Beers, which is located in London, came upon the trade of Russian diamonds circumventing the company through Belgium. As De Beers emphatically states, if the steel had come from Russian strategic reserves of only industrial diamonds, this would be half the problem. After all, America from time to time does the same thing. But the diamonds of the strategic reserve do not fall under the original agreement with De Beers. Experts are concerned about something else, the fact that on the market there are diamonds which have surfaced which are suitable for gem purposes. However, the main thing perhaps that was stated to us in the interview is that De Beers is ready in a constructive spirit to settle the problem. And more so, because of the profound understanding of the complexity of the situation in Russia and the process of the dialogue with the Russian government to examine future steps which would permit Russia to increase its profit in hard currency. Mr. Ref rationally noted that a true partnership is evident in the level of understanding of the problems of one's partner. The decision of the President of Mexico to stop military activity against the armed Indian groups in the state of Chiapas have brought positive results. For the first time after the uprising began by the Army of the National Liberation, in the southern towns and cities, stores have opened and banks and government institutions have begun to function. The government emissary Camacho Soles stated that he will do everything in his power in order to achieve peace. 37 people have died in northern Thailand as a result of a collision between an intercity bus with a large cement truck. The bus, which was traveling at a high speed, burst into flames from the force of the collision, and rescuers needed 6 hours to extinguish the fire. Bulgarian mafia groups are settling accounts. Shots had just ceased in the Sofian suburb when from a moving car in downtown, fire was opened on bodyguards at the doorway to the Sevastopol casino. Shooting took place near the building of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. Police arrived on the scene in minutes. However, the criminals disappeared without a trace. Colombian police in the city Cali arrested the head of the Peruvian narcotics mafia, Dimitri Ochales, nicknamed the Vatican. According to the police, he organized cocaine business not only in Peru, but as well in Brazil, Colombia, and Ecuador. Such a January in the east of Canada is not remembered. Each week, beginning with the end of November 1993, in the northeast side of America, snowstorms and hurricanes crashed down. On New Year's Eve, a new woe came, a severe decrease in temperature. Here it is called the arrival of the Siberian Express. Electrical power lines explode from the pressure and weight, and water pipes are burst constantly. In a large part of Montreal, there's no electricity nor hot water. The airports are closed. Traffic movement is paralyzed. From the beginning of the year on the roads of Quebec and northern USA, 70 people have died in automobile accidents and hundreds have been injured. To get to Montreal or central Canada, it is almost impossible. At the entrance from the Atlantic Ocean to the Gulf of St. Lawrence, there's a record snow, squalls, and frozen waters, and ships with cargo from Europe are icebound. On the 2nd of January in this region, a Greek ore-bearing ship split in half and drowned. However, despite all of the storms and snow squalls, at Pearson number 67, the Russian container cargo ship Nikolai Golovanov managed to dock. Its captain from St. Petersburg, Igor Farafanov, received a traditional baton with a gold tip. Presenting the award, the president of the port, Dominique Tabol, stated that the mastery of the Russian sailors allows us to tell the entire world that Canadian ports are open for travel 12 months of the year. And again, we will return to the most important event of the day, that is the visit of the American president to Russia. Today, his wife, Hillary, joined him. She flew to Moscow early in the morning and had her own itinerary for today. Mrs. Hillary Clinton arrived in Moscow 1.5 days after her husband did, and thereby emphasized, voluntary or involuntarily, her full independence. The First Lady of the United States is written about and spoken about much, dividing praise and criticism, giving credit to her brilliant mind, her law education, and her business know-how. The papers love, however, to grasp negative epithets, which in our country, in principle, is impossible. The lady from Little Rock is a woman with the Barracuda's smile. And obviously, public opinion does not favor intellect in the wives of presidents, not only in Russia, but in America as well. But this did not impede Hillary during the pre-election campaign to state that if you choose him, you'll get me as well. She knew well what she was saying. During the last few months, the rating of the president has increased by 9 more points. And Hillary herself, not having the possibility, according to American law, to occupy a state post in the administration of her husband, was appointed on, as they say, social basis, to head a commission to prepare health care reform. Working with her are ministers, congressmen, and scientists. How do you see the ideal health care program, and what would you like to achieve? We are attempting to improve health care, and I am very happy that Mrs. Yeltsin is also concerned with the problems of health care, especially pediatric. Children need love in general and care, but sick children need all the strength which we have. And therefore, her visit, Mrs. Clinton, began by visiting the Children's Hospital, where she arrived together with Naina Yeltsin. The Spasa-Pirovsky Hospital, which is in partnership with the Women's Hospital Magisha, and apart from technical aid, attempts to apply several methodologies. And here, the Russian-American Center is already functioning, entitled Women and Family, where education is underway for the future mothers and fathers. After the hospital visit, the First Lady of Russia showed her guest the best which Russia has to offer. And the best since the 11th century, as previously, remains the Kremlin. The walk through the Kremlin, it took up 40 minutes of the visit. That is little, but these are the harsh time restrictions of official visits. And the separate program of Hillary Clinton ended with a ladies' chat. Naina Yeltsin gave a breakfast in her honor. In the afternoon, Hillary Clinton joined her husband. Officially, the visit of the President of the United States and his wife will end tomorrow. But as of today, one may say confidently that the Clinton pair created a very pleasant impression on Russians and gave the confidence that not only families, but nations can be friends. All the best. There are no events in the athletic world which are more significant than the Olympic Games. In less than a month in Norway, the Olympic flame will spark. And on all the arenas of Lillehammer, there are days of awaiting. Good evening. In the rhythm of the sprint, the January distance is being covered by the International Hockey League Championships. The matches are being played every day. Today there were 5 of them. The Dynamos of Moscow hosted the automobilist from Ekaterinburg. Both teams are in different belts of the score chart. The Moscows are on the insiders' ring, but the automobiles are one of the outsiders. The guests approached the match informally. Losing 0-2, the Dynamos gained space but couldn't escape the defeat. The decisive goal was scored by Popov. The Ekaterinburg team won 3-2. Sokol lost to Avant-Garde 1-3. The army from Petersburg, with such a score, beat Novokuznetsk Metallurg. And how the Tivoli, Molot, and Pardogava-Usk-Minogorsk matches, we will tell you in the evening news. There is hope before the Olympic Games because of the success of the Russian speed skaters in the Swiss World Cup Championships. Sergei Klivcheny was fastest in the 500-meter run. Among the women, in second was Svetlana Bayarkina. At the 1.5-kilometer, the 2 first prize winners were, as in the recent Euro Championships. The first is the German Gunda Niemann, the second Svetlana Bazhanova. And next week, the Masters of Tennis will have a serious test. They're expecting the Australian Championships in Melbourne. Today in Melbourne, the lots fell to the contenders of the tournament net. The only Russian entry here is Alexander Volkov, who in the first round will meet with the host of the court, Will Mazur. 2 Australians, James Morgan and Mark Woodford, will play with Andrei Chesnakov and Andrei Cherkasov. A strong competitor for Andrei Olkhovsky is the German Patrick Kunin. Yevgeny Kafelnikov will meet with the American Steve Brown. Prime. A good practice for the world tennis players before the Australian Open was the New South Wales competition. Tomorrow, in the finalists, two Americans will meet: the first world racket, Peter Sampras, and the veteran World Championships, Ivan Lendl. Today, Sampras beat Peter Korde from Czechia, and the Lendl won against Evgeny Kafelnikov and Todd Martin from the USA. The best clubs of Europe are competing for the title in basketball. Now the group tournaments are underway. The Madrid Real beat the Italian Benetton 80-64. The 38 goals were scored by Arvydas Sabonis and Joe Arlamskas. The caravan of the rally Paris-Dakar Paris is on its return route. Today, the lap was won by the Frenchman Pierre Lartigue on the Citroën. Among the motorcyclists was the Italian Jorge Arcons. For those who don't sleep, on Ostankino we'll be transmitting this at 1 hour, 20 minutes. The south border of the cyclone, which is located over the northern coast of Scandinavia, is bringing to the European territory sending warm, humid air. This will lead to preserving warm weather in the Kaliningrad area and the Baltic countries in Pskov and Novgorod. Here it will be cloudy with precipitation, the temperature +1.6. The same weather is expected in the Leningrad district, Karelia and the Kolsk Peninsula. And in these areas, it will be somewhat colder, +2, -3. And on the Kolsk Peninsula, -5, -8. The winds will be less cold in Arkhangelsk and the Republic of Komi. Here there will be snow, gusts of winds, and the temperature will be -3 to 8. And on the east of Komi, the cold will remain at -18. The western central areas of the European territory of Russia, the south of Belarus, Ukraine and Moldova, will be in an area of atmospheric fronts. They are expecting cloudy weather, rain, wet snows, and intermittent fog with icy roads. During the night and day, the temperature will be 0 +5. The weather will be different in the eastern areas of the European territory of Russia. The anticyclone, that is, the high-pressure zone, which is over central Volga, in the meantime, will, from the southwest, move to the south of the Ural. In the central Volga, there will be a warming of 5 to 10 degrees and intermittent snow. Along the southern border of the anticyclone on the south of the Ural, the colder air from the east will move in, and therefore, in the regions of the southern Volga, and as well in the northern Caucasus and the Krasnodarsk region, they're expecting a decrease in temperature. Here it will be cloudy, precipitation, and icy roads. The temperature -1.6, in some places down to -10. And it is only on the Black Sea coast. Dry weather will remain with a temperature of +10 to 15. In the regions beyond the Caucasus, because of the shift of humid air from the Caspian Sea, cloudy weather is expected with precipitation and morning fogs. The temperature at night is 0, during the day 0 +5. And only in western Georgia there will be few clouds with the temperatures from 10 to 15 degrees. In Petersburg, tomorrow it will be cloudy with temporary precipitation with winds from the south-southwest at 6 to 9 meters per second. The temperature at night 0, during the day +2 and 4. In Moscow tomorrow it will be intermittent snow, rain, morning fogs, the winds from the southwest at 4 to 7 meters per second. The temperature at night 0, during the day 1 +3. Be careful on the roads, it is icy. All the best. Goodbye.